Muthuri stepped out of the forest, his feet touching familiar soil. The sight of his village filled him with warmth. The huts, the fields, the distant laughter of children. It was home, but something was wrong. The air was tense. The village, once alive with chatter, now buzzed with fear and uncertainty. Men stood in small groups, whispering. Women clutched their children, casting nervous glances toward the elder's hut. Muthuri frowned. Had something happened in his absence? Then he heard the voice of Intomarete, the elder, speaking loudly, and the voice of another man, one that made Muthuri's stomach tighten. Pushing through the crowd, he entered the elder's courtyard. Ntomarete stood tall, his eyes calm but firm, and in front of him stood Kirami, the village's best warrior, a man known for his strength but not for his patience. Kirami turned as Muthuri entered, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Look who has returned," he said with a smirk, "the hunter who left us when we needed him most." Muthuri stiffened. "What are you talking about?" Ntomarete sighed. "A great challenge has come to the village, Muthuri, and Kirimi believes he is the only one fit to face it." Muthuri looked around, sensing the weight of the situation. Then he noticed something. The people weren't just afraid, they were hungry. The drought had worsened, no rain had come. The food stores were nearly empty, and now Kirimi was demanding action. "We cannot sit and wait any longer," Kirimi declared, his voice full of frustration. "The river spirits are angry. They have cursed our land. We must go to the river and force them to listen. If they refuse, we take what is ours." A murmur ran through the villagers. Muthuri's heart pounded. Forcing the river spirits? It was a reckless plan. Dangerous. Foolish. And Kirimi wanted to lead the people into disaster. "You don't know what you're doing," Muthuri said. "The spirits do not listen to threats. They will answer only to those who understand patience and balance." Kirimi scoffed. "And what do you know of patience, hunter? You left, and now you return pretending to be wise." Muthuri met his gaze without fear. "I left to learn," he said, "and I have returned with the truth." The crowd fell silent. Kirimi's jaw clenched. He stepped forward, towering over Muthuri. "If you think you know better," he growled, "then prove it." Muthuri stood his ground. This was his true test. Not the Great Antelope, not the Black Lion, but this moment. Would he fall into Kirimi's trap, fighting for dominance, or would he use what he had learned? Muthuri took a deep breath. Then he did something unexpected. He lowered his spear. "I will not fight you," he said, "because true strength is not about proving who is strongest." Kirimi sneered. "So you admit you are weak?" Muthuri shook his head. "Number, I admit that strength is not about force. It is about knowing when to act and when to wait. You want to rush to the river, but you do not even know what awaits us there." The villagers watched closely, murmuring among themselves. Kirimi's face darkened, but before he could respond, the sky rumbled. A single drop of rain fell, then another. Then suddenly, the heavens opened. Gasps of shock and joy spread through the village. The dry earth drank deeply as the long-awaited rains poured down. Kirimi stared in disbelief. Muthuri turned to Ntomarete, who nodded knowingly. "The spirits were always watching," the elder said. "They needed to see if we had learned patience." Muthuri smiled. He had not needed to fight. He had not needed to prove himself through force. He had trusted the journey, and in doing so, he had given his people what they needed most. Kirimi lowered his gaze, humbled, and the village, at last, rejoiced. Moral of the story: true strength is not about power or force, but wisdom, patience, and knowing when to act. Thank you for watching the end.